Fire the fire. Hello everyone. For this video, I want to take a closer look into what it means to live the life of fire, or at least my understanding of what it looks like living fire. First and foremost, full disclosure, I have not achieved the fire myself. I actually have a day job that is full time. I go Monday through Friday, like most of us. And but I do know many people are financially independent and retired early. If you have achieved fire and you are watching this video, please leave me a comment on how you achieved it. I would love to learn how, so I could actually replicate that for myself and replicate it for those who are watching as well. My ultimate goal here is to educate people on personal finances so we can all live a happier life, or at least live a life on our own terms, or at least more in control than what we have now. So if that is the case, that I am, in the pursuit of achieving the fire, why is the title of this video Fire the Fire? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get started with that, I have a small favor to ask. If you haven't already, please hit the like button and subscribe. Did you do it yet? Is that like button turned on? Because it's a new thing with the YouTube, right? They decided that we actually cannot move forward with the video without you hitting the like button. So please hit that like button. Thank you for doing that. Now let's get started. First, let's define what FIRE is. Financial independent and retire early. It is where people go through extreme savings and investments in order to retire far earlier than the traditional age of 62 or older. In recent years, this was embraced by many, especially the millennials and the Gen Z. We started an extreme saving lifestyle and remained in the workforce for many years to save and invest. We worked and invested towards achieving the almighty 4% rule. For those of you who don't know, the 4% rule says you can withdraw up to 4% from the initial portfolio value as your yearly expenses, and you will not run out of money, no matter the market. For example, if you have $1.2 million invested in the portfolio, I can withdraw up to $48,000 a year or $4,000 per month. Of course, at the time and the market changed, so did the 4% rule, and but however, it is still widely looked upon as a great rule of thumb when it comes to retiring early. I will do another video talking about the details of the 4% rule and the asset allocation within the portfolio itself and things like that. Well, according to the 4% rule, once you have enough money invested in the portfolio and once you can withdraw 4% from it, and when that number exceeds your expenses for the year, you are actually financially independent and you are ready for your retirement. Hopefully, a lot earlier than your traditional age of 62. Hence, retire early. Now that we know what fire is, what are the steps for the fire? Not surprisingly, the steps are very simple. There's only like three steps. Step one, cut down on your expenses. You heard about people cutting down on their coffee budget, like 20-cent size coffee from Stephen Graham. On a side note, I really like this guy. I learned so much from the guy, and there's actually a lot of others like him. I watch and try to soak it all in. Step two, set aside the difference. So you can establish the emergency fund for 3 to 6 months. That is a traditional recommendation, but I actually recommend more, which I will talk about why in another video. Step three, make more and invest the rest. Lately, the most popular recommendation when it comes to investing has been the likes of VOO or VT-SAX. That is to provide you with a low cost diversification, a low cost diversification, and to give you exposure to 500 of the biggest companies in the U.S. or the total U.S. market, the stock market. And that's it. Those are the three steps: cut down expenses, save, and invest. Of course, these are the extremely simplified steps of the fire itself, and there are many sub steps, and much more is needed to be said about these steps. And this worked well for many people. So I'm not knocking it by any means. And again, I am working hard to achieve this very fire status. But again, if that is the case, why is the title of this video Fire the Fire? Why is that? Because at least for me, I looked over a very crucial part of this fire movement until recently. Let me give you an example. Let's start with the that $1.2 million that we talked about earlier. If you recall, with having $1.2 million, we can safely withdraw up to $4,000 per month. So let's start with the $4,000 and we'll do some math and see how that goes. Part one, let's calculate the expenses. Starting with the housing expense, according to the Zillow's home value index, basically it means it's the value home value for a typical area. And in this case, I actually use the United States, which is $320,662 for the home value, and that was as of December 31st of 2021. If you have 20% to put down, which is a little bit over $64,000, using a 4% interest rate for 30 years, your monthly payment will be a bit over $1,200 per month for the principal and interest. But plus, you have to pay for your taxes, you have to pay for your insurance, and sometimes an HOA. Let's estimate all of that to be about $1,600 per month. Of course, not everyone can put 20% down or more, which means either you pay a little bit higher rate or you pay what they call PMI. But you may also get or have a better rate than 4% interest rate, right? Recently, you had a really really low interest rates, so you may live in a neighborhood, and also you may live in a neighborhood with no HOA. But you also maybe have a house that's maybe a little bit more expensive, or maybe your taxes a little bit higher, your insurance may be a little bit higher or lower. Either way, let's assume your housing expense to be about $1,600 per month. And for auto purchases, according to the Kelly Blue Book January 2022 article, an average new car price topped at $47,000 and a 28,500 for the used cars that were paid in 2021. At a 3% interest rate for those 72 months, a new car will be over $700 per month and a used car will be over $400 per month. If you and your spouse purchase a new car and a used car in 2021, it will be $1,100 per month. Lastly, for healthcare costs, according to Kaiser Family Foundation, the average annual premium in 2021 were $7,739 for single coverage and $22,221 for the family coverage. Of course, a lot of that gets either subsidized by the government or gets covered partially by your employer if you have an employer sponsored plan. I have an employer sponsored plan, and I have a very basic plan for my family of three, and I paid $10,312.80 in 2021, and that is over $850 a month. And this does not include the dental, vision, life, or anything else. So just looking at these three items alone, we're looking at $1,600 plus 1,100 plus 850, which is a little bit over $3,500 per month. We started with $4,000 per month, and we're looking at less than $500 a month to spend on everything else to live. Again, I understand that not everybody has a spouse or two cars, or even if that is the case, you may not pay $1,100 per month in auto expenses. But of course, there are lots of other things like auto insurance, gas, maintenance on the car, or upkeep the car, and things like that. I'm just not so familiar with the health insurance. I'll just leave it at that. But now let's take a look at the part two, which is getting to the almighty $1.2 million. To start, I had to assume a few things. And my last boss told me not to assume anything because when you assume, well, most of you know where I'm going with that one. But anyways, I assume you started with no money and it is compounding daily for the next 30 years at a 10% rate, which we know this will not be the case because the stock market does not go straight up 10% yearly for 30 years, nor does the market open up for business every day. But according to the compound interest calculator, If you do that with a monthly investment of $550 per month, you will have a whopping $1.26 million. But you have to keep in mind, this is for 30 years. So if you started at 30, you'll be 60 by the time you actually achieve this number. So I'm not really sure if you actually retired early. So let's take a look at a shorter term like 20 years or a popular number of 10 years. In 20 years, you would need to contribute $1,600 per month to get to $1.2 million. And for 10 years, you would need to contribute $6,000 per month to get to a little bit over $1.2 million. Great. Now that that was easy. Now that we had that target, let's take a look closer at those numbers. According to the U.S. HUD, Housing and Urban Development, for the year 2021, the median family income in the US was $79,900. That's less than $7,000 per month. So with that number, obviously 10-year plan won't work here. But we still have that $1,600 per month for 20 years. So let's continue to look. That $7,000 per month was before paying any taxes. So let's take a rough estimate for federal income tax and the FICA, which is the federal payroll tax, which is contributing to your Social Security and Medicare. And let's use that number to be about $6,000 for the year or $500 per month. That means your bring home is actually less than $6,500 per month, and you subtract the earlier number of $3,500 per month, then you're left with $3,000 per month. But some people may say, well, your health insurance is pre-tax, so it should be a little bit over or lower. The difference here should be very, very little, if any. But the insurance cost that I'm using here was the actual number I paid in the year 2021. So if we contributed $1,600 per month, now we have $1,400 per month left to pay for everything else that I did not mention. Food, subscription, utility, shopping for random things like clothes and toys or whatever the hobbies that you got going on. With these numbers, I just don't see how a family can survive on this kind of number. No wonder it is so hard. And I tell you, there are some different things that you could do to kind of cut down on your costs. Like, for example, I don't drink coffee, so it doesn't even cost me 20 cents, right? And it's not even part of my budget. But I spend more than $1,400 a month to live. But let's say I achieve this somehow. This is $1.2 million in 20 years. Is my lifelong goal really about living frugally for the first 20 years of my working life so I can save and invest the difference? So I can retire maybe 10, maybe 20 years earlier than the traditional age of 62? So I can kind of live how I lived frugally for the rest of my life? Or really, I would have to live even more frugally because the math is the $3,500 per month plus the $1,400 per month is actually $4,900 a month. And at that 1.2 million, I can only spend $4,000 per month. So I need to cut down my expenses by another $900 per month. Some people might say, well, you shouldn't have auto loans by the time you actually retire, and your mortgage should be paid off as well. Well, if your mortgage is paid off, you will be saving about $1,200 per month, which is great. But you still have to pay your insurance and taxes. You have to pay for the upkeep of the home, like, replace the roof maybe, HVAC systems and things like that. Also, no auto loan means you can't get another car because the monthly budget does not support for the auto payment. And, Willie, crazy thing is, how are we going to pay off your 30-year mortgage in 20 years when it seems like there is really no room for an adjustment there? So if my crazy numbers are somewhat, somehow, a little bit true, what is the answer here? What is a missing piece? How has anybody ever achieved this number? I know some people are retiring in less than $1 million. Like, how does that happen? Does that mean that we're all really destined for failure, that we just can't achieve fire? Is fire really like a pipe dream for an average family? Are we all going to have to work until we die? And this is the reason why I said fire the fire, because the numbers simply don't work for the average family. We need more than $1.2 million to retire. Great. But that means we need to contribute more money. That means we need to cut down more on our expenses. But wait a minute. We don't have room to cut down anymore. We need to work and invest longer. That really defeats the purpose of retiring early, isn't it? So how are we to achieve this financial independence and retire early? And that's what we're going to be talking about on my next video on Fire the Fire. Leave me a comment on what your thoughts are, maybe what your numbers are like, maybe. Let me know if you think my numbers are way off, you know. But if you actually found this video to be a little bit interesting and somewhat helpful, please do me a huge favor, hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. I want to do more videos like this. And also come back and watch my next video about what was that one thing I looked over until recently. To maybe that the one thing will make sense of all of this, right? And hopefully that will answer why I am still in pursuit of fire if this is the case. And what about, more importantly, what about you? Should you be in the pursuit of fire as well? You know, uh, thank you for watching. Thank you again for watching. And until next time, thank you guys.